Taste tickles. There we are.
What was that? I don't know.
Did you clap?
I did clap.
Hooray.
I clapped.
I don't know if it's going to be useful.
It is very useful. It's how I did my first editing for last episode. By the way, y'all,
talk about that.
If you listened to the recorded one I released, I tried to do a gag at the beginning with the countdown, and I didn't go back and line it up. It's off by just a smidge, and it bothers me. So I hope no one else hears it, because I did it.
But that sounds like the kind of thing that no one would notice till you point out.
Oh, then you're going to hear it and go, Draggor's editing sucks. Hey, Pep, if you edit the next one, could I try and convince you to use the same software I used, just as a comparison thing?
Same software, for the one that we're recording right now?
No, I used a different free and open source, which is what some of the folks were talking about in potential show topics, multi-track, non-linear audio editor called Ardour. And that's what I used to put the episode together.
Ooh.
So I want someone else to try using it to see what happens. But I know, for speed's sake, you just want to use what you already know how to use. But if you're willing to experiment and try something else, and if not, that's fine. I'm not going to make you.
Look, Dre, I haven't learned a new thing in 10 years.
Isn't it interesting how both games and software are going toward a subscription model to where you are signed up for life? Fucking Adobe and any AAA title. They want to get you signed up. So it's just a fucking part of your life that they want you to be.
Well, yeah, they're learning from
gambling,
property management companies.
And yeah, totally.
Well, gambling on the game side, but Adobe moving to it's two parts. One, they knew there was a lot of piracy going around, but here's the thing. All right, I guess we're starting a brief little rant in topic on subscription stuff and software models and open source things. So Microsoft learned a long time ago that people pirating Windows is actually good. Because that means then they're still using Windows. So when the time comes to buy a laptop or a machine, they are psychologically locked in because the time cost of going to something else, yes, Apple is always there. And yes, Apple is easy. Well, there's still a learning curve, no matter what you do. So if you have pirated the thing, well, when the time comes and you have to use it professionally, or you're at a job, and they ask, what do you know how to use? You say Photoshop. Well, now your job has to buy the business license. Now,
I learned to drive by downloading a car.
But never download a car.
What gets interesting with Adobe moving to the subscription model is that is essentially the next logical step once you have, in your view, cornered the market. They made a judgment call at some point and said, are we getting the lock-in that we want even through piracy, or is it to our advantage to do a subscription? Can we extract more money out of the people that are pirating our stuff that are already locked in and using our things? Because the unfortunate mental trick is, let's call it just that the Photoshop or the Adobe Creative Suite for 1 year of updates, let's say that legitimately should cost between $600 and $2,000. In that the amount of development resources that go into it demands that price for the number of people that doing it. Let's call that fair as a presumption. Well, that still is a financial barrier for everyone who just wants to draw.
Yep.
So then you go, it's only $10 a month or $20 a month, and you get full access to this suite, and even over the course of a year, it costs less than this full subscription. The nasty trick is, over the lifetime of an artist, they get way more money than that single subscription. That's all that artist needs. Because for the most part, people didn't update between major versions. They didn't have to. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. A lot of the stuff that I have used and Zan has used, we're all using the Creative Suite 6 from 8 years ago because it does what we need. The only obnoxious thing we have to deal with is it doesn't have modern video codecs.
I want to do my favorite thing, which is make it about socialism. It's not even about socialism. It's just a way to make it a specific critique of capitalism, because one of the tenets of why capitalism is supposed to be good and we should like capitalism is that it like makes things better, and it increases efficiency, it drives costs down, all good things that they tell you in school that it does. Well, I think it's funny because if you think back through the history of software, you used to have like major overhaul, like going from Windows 2 to 3 or whatever. Or, was there a Windows 2 and 3? Is that how it worked?
I don't recall 2 ever being a legit major version. It was like Windows, and then Windows 3.1 really was the big one.
Like the jump from frickin' DOS to Windows or whatever, like when you'd have to change your software significantly, and there were significant changes and improvements, like the audio software you would use on an Apple II versus and then MP3 exists. We gotta have stuff to do that. So like the changes would be more significant to your software from like iteration to iteration, and they would ironically cost less. And now, like you're saying, once you have the tools, they haven't really, like audio hasn't changed since the frickin' 40s. Like once digital audio came about, like the tech hasn't changed that much. It's got more efficient.
The software around it has changed drastically, and like the compression and encoding and streaming aspect has, but like if you're dealing with raw recorded audio, correct. A wave is a wave, and all of that is not that different at all.
So if you're using Photoshop, I guess Logic isn't exorbitantly expensive, and it does not force you to subscribe to anything. By the way, that's the reason why I'm stuck on Apple. I'm now saying stuck on Apple because my computer broke for completely bullshit reasons, and I had to dump way too much money into another one because I want to use Logic. Logic is $200, which is, as far as like pro level audio software goes, between it and Pro Tools, which are some of the only things that do like working with audio traditional. That's very cheap. And they don't force me to a subscription. So I'm in a weird way end up walled gardened within Mac shit because I want to use one specific program that I know, like modern iterations, Pro Tools does a subscription model. Pro Tools by itself costs like $3,000 if you want the full version, or you can pay $40 a month or whatever, and it makes me want to die.
So
Sibelius
does
the same thing.
Are you interested in trying Ardour?
You could probably force me into it, but like I have spent so much time learning Logic and learning the keyboard shortcuts that like the only way I can my time budget has just changed so much that the idea of going, okay, let's put even a 10th of the amount of time I took into learning Logic and imagine I'm that shitty at a new software. It's like, cool, it's been a week and I've got nothing done. Which also contributes to why people stay in the software they stay in. And then if the software you like specifically changes to a subscription model, and like me, you fucking hate that, what are you going to do? Go learn a whole new software?
Yes.
You're 30 and you got to get your commissions in and you got deadlines. You don't have time to learn a whole, you know what I'm saying? Like it's all just fucking lock in treachery.
Well, and like to be clear, the time lock-in is just as true for anything in open source as well. Like, let's say a project dies. So the thing about open source is it's as socially democratic or communist as it gets. Things only happen because people get together and want to make it happen. And unfortunately, sometimes people, for various reasons, just stop. A project stagnates, it dies, no one wants to pick it up, it's too hard to pick it up and have a new team develop it. So sometimes, just the natural life cycle of things, it stops. And then you either have to keep using the thing that isn't maintained until you literally cannot use it anymore.
To like times out with operating systems.
Yeah, or, like we're dealing with media, right? So at some point, there's going to be a video and audio file format where I'm going to sit there and go, I don't want to have to keep converting this to older, shittier formats. I'm done using this old pirated version of Adobe Premiere. I'm going to go use something else, and I'm going to go learn something else. Like, at some point, the agitation and trade-off is going to be forced upon me.
Welcome to Last Minute Politics. My name is Pepper Coyote, and I am joined by...
Dragor.
And Zandy the Blue. Hey, we did it.
We are a politics kind of... We do talk about politics all the time,
Phrasing.
but we also talk about wrestling and furries and all kinds of shit. If you are listening right now in the Discord, wave your hands. If you want to join people in the Discord, get yourself on patreon.com. Find us. We are Last Minute Politics on there, and for literally $1 per month, you can listen to us record these things live. Hey, we're doing a weird thing. Plug your stuff up front. Dragger, what do you want to tell people to go do? Like, what are you doing in life? You do streams?
Not this Sunday, because this Sunday, I believe, is the moved Mother's Day that I will be celebrating. But Sundays at 5 p.m. Central, it's Dooming with me, Dragor. We play a free and open source version of Doom with a bunch of community-made mods, while I conduct interviews and chats with a bunch of furry folk I know, and gradually, increasingly, some non-furry folk as well. In particular, there's a WarioWare mod minigame that a person has made that we've been playing. They're not a furry, but they are aware of us. Furry adjacent. And once I get to know like what they did to put into this mod, I'm going to have them on as a guest.
Hey, the Discord figured out a way to wave at us. That's great.
Oh, look at the bird waving.
Look at that.
Zan, what are you doing in the next
doing things,
couple of weeks?
Just had a birthday and just still doing things over at Dragon Show. It's pretty much Dragon Show everywhere, or Alkali and Zanny. Either you can usually find Dragon Show. And on YouTube.
That's DRAGGET.
Yep.
How many T's?
2 G's, 1 T.
So like this has been a fuck of a week. Like already it's Wednesday, and so I feel like things kind of slowed down for a second, or they felt like they slowed down because people just don't pay as much attention to the president right now because it's not a former like reality show celebrity.
Yeah.
But like, I don't even know where to start with these things. We're not going to spend a ton of time on all these, but like things that have happened this week. So I'll start with sad news, I guess. It's not really sad because I try not to put my faith directly in people, but rather ideas. But Andrew Yang made depending on how you look at it, either a calculated move to attempt to win Jewish votes in New York that backfired, or loves bombing Palestinian civilians. He came out. If you guys didn't see, he had a tweet. You want me? I'll give the context.
Oh yeah.
He tweeted out that like I stand with Israel, and if you haven't been paying attention, Israel and Palestine right now, that conflict is very, very hot right now.
Right
there
now,
have been various
or
back and forth.
has
always been, but this week specifically, there's been literally hundreds of bombings.
Just recently, Dragger, there was more escalated tensions, especially with especially with the bombings after the tension rose with I'm sure as Pepper is going to mention.
To oversummarize, there's been COVID restrictions on various holy sites. The same thing that's always fighting about. They're fighting over holy sites because Jerusalem is a significant city to 3 different religions, and for hundreds of years they coexisted relatively peacefully, and then, imperialism showed up, and now we have to do hard borders and all the various, So COVID restrictions on holy sites. The Palestinians, who are a majority Muslim country, they wanted to do a thing, and the Israeli government that controls the holy sites and controls their access to it were like, no, you can't do it. So there was a huge protests. So, okay, take down the barriers. Protests continue. Various, you can't act like, you always have to bring up that it's not that the Palestinians are just sitting there and receiving, but like there are from the Palestinian side, from Gaza specifically, like they chuck missiles over. Apparently there were 400 missiles shot at Israel, and there are at least, I think, 2 Israeli deaths, and then Israel rained hellfire back and killed like 15 children, and like
there is a video of someone, I don't know if it was specifically a reporter or just someone with a camera, of someone that was getting ready to throw a grenade either into or just at a bunch of people trying to do medical care, and only stopped because they noticed the video.
Holy shit.
And like, that is not an isolated incident. That is not, like, that's just one who didn't go through with it because it was on video. We've got a lot of video of really awful things. Be very careful. Content warning. Be very careful when you're going out and looking into this.
Oh yeah,
like
there you find like the number of straight up execution videos is obscene. and you will stumble upon, like, it's not unheard of if you're at a border crossing as a Palestinian for an Israeli soldier to just fucking kill you, and then it's just next in line. And the number of stories like that are hundreds. Every Palestinian has either a direct family member or someone or a friend, something, who's just been in cold blood murdered by the Israeli military. And remember, as we're talking, it's not that like Israeli citizens are strapping up and going Rambo out there. It is a gigantic military operation, the Israeli government, which is different from just Israelis or Jewish people. And that's what makes this conversation so fucking muddy, is that bad faith actors want to paint any criticism of Israel as a criticism of Jewishness.
Well,
and
it's just like you would say
that.
the American people are separate from the American government.
Yeah, exactly. Jesus, I hope people can separate me from the actions of my government.
Yeah.
So you were saying there were two options with Yang, and the third one is as a matter of if you are, for the most part, participating in the United States government and are not Bernie Sanders, you are pro-Israel. Like it's almost like
it's the default.
This is conspiracy theory realm to an extent, but like our policy kind of lays it out. If you are not pro-Israel, it almost kind of feels like the powers that be make sure you can't keep doing whatever it was you were doing.
It's a politics arm thing.
Yes.
They are in there because Israel is our foot in the Middle East, and strategically we like Israel, and we buddy to make money for rich people, and all the shit. Benjamin Netanyahu, the guy who's the prime minister of Israel right now, like has so many scandals. Like he is ooh.
Let's not ignore the fact that it's strategically a good thing because everyone thinks Jesus is going to come back if they're there. So
That is a big chunk of people genuinely are like, the second coming's going to be in Jerusalem, so we got to keep Jerusalem.
Yup.
And we're like, there are fucking hardcore right wingers who like Israel because they are trying to LARP the Book of Revelations into happening. That is not a joke or an exaggeration. That is exactly what they actually want to do.
It is insane how many people think the Book of Revelations is going to happen in their lifetime, and this is after the year 2000. I thought it would
This is part
go
of why a
down.
bunch of religious people voted for Cheeto. They thought he was going to accelerate that.
Yes,
Yeah.
fucking apocalyptic accelerationism. We want to accelerate the pace of God's work.
Christian accelerationism.
God, hurry up with like a broom handle. So anyway, we're stuck in this horrible situation where, like, even right now as I'm talking, like anything I say negative about Israel could be construed by bad faith actors that I'm anti-Semitic, and they use that as a cudgel to make sure no American politician who is not themselves Jewish, because then they can just be like, fuck you, I'm Jewish, you can't use that shit on me. Bernie Sanders, for example.
Yeah.
Like, you're stuck in this thing where, holy crap, do you remember how they went after Rashida Tlaib? Or like if Ilhan Omar, or was it Ilhan Omar? Was it both of them? But like they try to every once in a while just bad faith take them out for like, oh, you're anti-Semitic. It's like, look, disagreeing with the power difference between Israel and Palestine is the equivalent of like your dad and an infant in terms of like what damage they can do to each other. Like the Palestinians try as hard as they can to do anything, and like Israel has the full weight of their own military and the US military. They have the missile defense grid, which shoots down like 90% of the things anyway, and they try to blow it up as if it's like an even fair fight of two warring factions. It's like, no, it's the Israeli government and a refugee camp. That is essentially what Palestine is. Editor's note, when I refer to Palestine as a refugee camp, that's referring to the conditions there, not to imply that the people living in Palestine are not from there. Like they aren't. They are not refugees from another country. They have lived in that area for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's another example of why just drawing lines on a map and carving out new countries such as Israel and shoving people over here onto the Gaza Strip and such is not a great idea.
You know, I'm kind of shocked because
I
I've
don't know,
always been very blunt with it. That I've going through high school, I definitely had people say things like, genuinely, it was one of the more eye-opening things. There was, somewhere in the 2000s, another incident happened, and I made some comment on, wow, I didn't know that. That's really terrible and horrible. And then someone said, don't talk about my holy land. And I'm like, fucking excuse me? An atrocity is an atrocity. I don't care what your faith is. And that really also started really solidifying my anti-theism of like, y'all can't stop killing each other over imaginary things.
It is funny how that works. Like once you, you raise up anything, hey, you can't talk about that like that. That's exactly what religious people do. I was with
like-
my parents, and then my mom did not want me to swear on Sunday, but I just kept saying fuck. I couldn't stop.
To be clear, we're not drawing any kind of comparison to the mass murder going on
No,
in
I
Israel and
know.
Palestine to not swearing on Sunday.
Can't say fuck. I mean, basically the same. I don't know.
Hey, you know, potato.
All right. So, by the way, this was a cancel corner because Andrew Yang tweeted out support of Israel in the middle of the conflict we're describing, which
And I saw AOC came out and was like, fuck.
exactly. Well, you have all these New York Jews who are like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like-
Well, and then, okay, so we have it under cancel corner, but like, let's take a step back. Andrew Yang largely doesn't deserve a seat at the table because he got there by, exploitative means of capitalism, has a shitload of money, and is basically a tech bro. So like that alone makes you go, why are we listening to this person? Oh, because he happened to talk about universal basic income, which a lot of us want, but we're all looking at it going like, where this message is coming from is suspect.
Yeah, Yang is an excellent example of why, or an excellent reason, I guess, of why to not tie your hopes, dreams, and philosophies to individual people, because that's a very right wing thing to do. That's like daddy worship. You got to find your great strong man to say. No, it's not about that. Andrew Yang is whatever. The idea of a universal basic income and making sure people are taken care of no matter what is good. Like Yang could go out and murder a whole school of children tomorrow. That does not make UBI a bad thing. That doesn't make taking care of people a bad idea. So like people will be like, oh, I thought you loved Yang. It's like, no, it's not Yang that I liked. Like it's the fact that he popularized UBI. Like that's kind of neat.
So there's I'm going to post the link in the chat, but the Twitter handle is called Black Socialists. I've been following them, and I've kind of been learning a lot about how they frame things. And in particular, one of the ones that they bring up, which is why I was making these snarky comments I just was earlier about, is there a comparison to this? It's like, we're a country founded on doing what's going on there to the native populations here. Like, we're built on imperialism and colonialism, so why would anyone expect us to stop that somewhere else?
Okay, we got two situations going on with hackers. We have there's ransomware. They're both ransomware situations where one group or individual, I don't know, they took over a pipeline's software and have stopped it, an oil pipeline specifically. In the U.S. It's a really big one. It's really important. And if you want details, fucking go to people who actually know what the hell they're talking about. But gigantic pipeline shut down completely, and it still is. Like, it's been several days now, and the people with the money are extremely freaked out about it.
As of an hour, it's restarted, but it will still won't return for normal for a few days.
All right, so there you are. And then the other hacking situation is that they're European, they're not even Americans, they hacked the DC police force systems, I guess, and they were like, give us $4 million, and DC police were like, we'll give you 100,000. They're like, okay, we're releasing the person, like the full files of 22 of your officers, and we're just gonna keep, and I'm like, oh wow. So hackers are shutting down fossil fuel pipelines and increasing police transparency. I think this might be a psyop by the Biden administration, because that's the stuff they said they were going to do, right? Like, Joey is like, hey, German hackers, I can't get the police to do shit, but you can.
Joe is staying up at night with his shades on, hacking away.
Listen, Jack, you got to get into the DC police system.
Jackhack69.
Jackhack!
I don't want to talk about this
that's the
anymore.
title. This is the title.
Jackhack69 it is!
I'm writing this down.
Fuck.
Okay, so I want to talk about the DC police one first. Remove any potential of it being a psyop, and let's just say some group somewhere decided to do this.
That was facetious. I do not believe that. I think that is nothing Biden would do because he doesn't want to accomplish those goals. Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
There's two things at play. One is the overall thing of cybersecurity, and I will save that part later because it gets really techy, but let's look at the premise here. A group hacked in and has this information and then wanted to make money off of it. So my brain immediately goes to one of two ways. holy shit, these people probably aren't doing so well, and like they need the money, or they just saw an opportunity or are part of these various black hat rings that do this, and it's just to get money. Because my brain immediately goes to, if this were for the greater good, there'd be no ransomware. It would be, they were hacked, and here it all is. Fuck. So, like, I don't know. When you hear about this story, where are you two at in regards to, like, that topic of it's two bad parties fucking with each other, or...
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is another situation where I'm not saying this is a good thing people should be doing. I can't like endorse it, but like, I don't care. Good. Go for it. Fucking, I'm glad the cops mess around with sealed records and you can never know the crimes they've committed. In a lot of departments, they shred all their like bad behavior records, their demerits or whatever, like within 6 months or maybe a year sometimes. So people doing this, I don't know, man. Maybe if you had any kind of transparency, this wouldn't be such an easy way to fuck with you.
I see it as a logical extension of it's an abuse of power. Like, let's say you had, like, I still don't agree with basically any form of police, but if we had the police as we did today, but a shit ton of transparency laws and enforcement of them, the harm that police do, I genuinely believe, would be drastically less.
Let's play devil's advocate here for real quick, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to say like, "Oh, you're hurting working people by doing this hack." You know what I'm saying? And it's like, so,
hackers are working people.
but it's true. Like, well, I'm just gonna say it. Alkali had to pull extra hours because of this shit. Like, not his fault that he has to do extra hours, and they should have more help anyway. And they're blaming the wrong people.
Oh,
yeah, and
sure.
that also points to how it wasn't done with like altruism in mind. They just want to fucking rip somebody off.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like, release the fucking records. Like, at this point, you know, we're all standing around here going, the police cannot be reformed. So I don't have any problem in saying, like, I personally am not going to go do black hat stuff because, like, once you do that, even for a good cause, if anyone finds out that that follows you, at least it feels like that is what I was taught. You know, when I was doing all the cybersecurity stuff in college, it was impressed upon me that, like, if you ever fuck this up, you will never be fully trusted again if people find out. So I personally take that very seriously. However, if that's not something that matters to you and you're going to go leak police records and you're going to continue to expose the harm, yes, that's called fucking whistleblowers, not hacking.
If they want to be helpful, I wish they would not do like private information. I don't really give a shit, but I wish just release the disciplinary records, maybe like some body cam footage that they don't want to like to get out. Like,
yeah, like don't necessarily dox a bunch of people because like that could potentially put families at harm, right? Like, so you're a shitty cop, you're a piece of shit, and let's say you've outright murdered people. I still don't think that person's wife or kids should die because someone threw a Molotov cocktail through the window. I don't know. I'm still, as of right now, a pacifist. So, like, I don't believe in capital punishment. So even the shittiest of cops, I don't think should die. I just do whatever you got to do to make it so they don't harm people anymore. So as far as, like, harms committed, yes, hack the police and release that shit. Don't try and make money off of it, damn it. And it turns out they believe so much in their ability to get away with shit, all they offered was a piddly $100,000. They have much bigger room for budget. So, like, this in and of itself tells you their confidence in, we're not that worried on what you release. Like, look, we've got video of a dude kneeling on a guy's neck to death, and the police are still here just the same. Like, all right, we were forced to punish that one guy. Aww.
Of the four people who did it, one got in trouble. Like... That's fucked. Like, I definitely do not feel sympathy for Derek Chauvin, obviously, but like the fact that they always got to make a pariah out of one. Like, oh, this is the bad apple, and now they're gone and everything's fine. I hate
it's a very American thing.
Exactly. Like when all the school shootings were happening, they tried to pin it on that one public safety officer who didn't run in and like voluntarily die.
Oh,
it's like their security and their job is to secure things, but like, are we really going to send this person to jail for not entering a life-threatening situation? Like, it just feels like that one person is not the reason school shootings are happening in America.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So, all right, let's tie this to the pipeline one. Similar situation. Hackers are in there fucked with stuff. If anything, the pipeline one is a lot more like the natural disaster of the power grid in Texas, in that all right, so when you're building systems, this is like my job in my life of building software, building architecture, and then planning for scenarios that happen. And
You want to just make this your segment? And just,
we're jumping into it. We're fucking doing it. All right.
Cybersecurity, go.
So, cybersecurity is actually an aspect of keeping your system up and running. And once an incident happens, the reason why no longer matters. And so when you continue to see things in the news that hyper-focus on bad actors, well, of course something's going to happen. What if that pipeline stopped because of no one's fault and just a thing happened? The same effect would have happened. People still would have been fucked. Panic buying still would have been going on. So, like, the results are the same regardless of the reason. So part of it is capitalism hates paying for redundancy or planning for edge case scenarios. Like, I don't know how much y'all
Planning
have
for
been
anything.
in a non-tech scenario where you're like, hey, this edge case could be really bad for us. And then people go, well, the time and money to do that, fuck that. And it just doesn't happen. It is deprioritized. And the decision is usually made by an incredibly non-technical person. So the problem with security, and what I'll transition to ask and talk about y'all, is it's not just a technical thing. So, like, yes, in writing software, you have to take care to make sure, to the best of your ability, an exploit can't happen. But the fact of the matter is, coding and computers are so fucking difficult to prevent all of that, where if it's accessible in some way, shape, or form, with enough effort, it can be owned. Owned meaning like someone else goes in and claims ownership or has root access or however you want to talk it. Takes control of the thing either in person or from afar. It does not matter. So
hacked.
Yes, hacked. See, hacked is I take issue with that particular term because a lot of the times, one, hacking originally meant hack it together. Programmers put stuff together. It just turned out a bunch of people that were curious got labeled the term hacker. Like they did the opposite of reclaiming. Hacker was a good thing and a cool thing in the 80s and early 90s, and it got turned into this villain thing. So it got claimed by the enemy.
I think it's just the fact that the movie Hackers exists whenever someone, like,
Yes.
I think people who haven't even seen that movie just go, oh, fucking around with computers. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you
and
know,
then,
Angelina
like,
Jolie.
Our, us
Computer
as
attack.
techies on the internet, especially like script kiddies and things, would use it as like, lol, I hacked you. So it just, the word evolved to don a more negative connotation. But
My
okay.
account got hacked.
All right, let's play a game. Is this or is this not a hack? You have a website that controls an admin interface to this pump flow. And let's say, is part of the design of that web interface, test credentials made it to production and are embedded in the page. So if you go to that website, as a general user, as any of us could do, you view the source of the page, which everyone can do. This is how the web works. And you see in there, oh, there's credentials. I wonder if they work. And then they do. Did a hack happen? Did anyone put in effort to outright bypass a system? Like through, for the most part, when I hear hack, it's someone formatted a very careful username string that caused a flaw in the hardware or something. Do y'all understand what I'm talking about with that? Like buffer overrun or underrun?
You envision like hacking as like forcing your way into a system when 90% of what we all think of as hacking is usually like either some kind of social engineering where they just like call you and trick you into telling them your login shit, or like what you just said, just looking at basic viewable code and finding an exploit that is just freely available for anyone who knows how to do it.
Like credentials make it to production constantly. It's hilarious how often it happens. So, like, all right, what should be different going forward? What's the answer? For the both of you that don't have the tech knowledge I have, take any incident of hacking or unwanted access, and, like, what would you propose as a thing to do?
I think like the play after I've listened to more and more people talk about it, like just the topic in general, I've arrived. I don't have the knowledge. I'm probably the least technically savvy of the three of us, unless it's specifically audio software. Yeah. But it seems less a thing where I used to think of it as like, oh, it's your house and you lock your house and then you're good. Like you do the security and then the security is done. But it's more like you kind of do your best, and when things happen and go wrong, you fix that and like strategize and plan. But it's gonna happen. Like
it is going to happen.
That's where I'm at this point.
Zan, do you have anything? It's okay if you don't.
I don't, because it's just the fact that it's going to happen is an interesting problem.
So, okay.
Your identity is gonna get stolen. You just
right.
You just have to have your contingency plan for when it eventually happens.
So the main thing that is an answer, and I'm really glad you brought up the identity stuff, because how many of us
Equifaxed last year?
How many of us here or in the chat, feel free to type it, do some kind of account sharing where you have shared a password? And in the context that you have done that, how much have you reused that password or have a similar enough password somewhere else? Or even reused that same email address?
For like a streaming service or whatever.
Anything. Streaming service, a bank login, your benefits, a medical login.
Well, I'm just saying it's more likely for people to share their accounts. Well, obviously, yeah. But obviously,
I'm doing a double dip of sharing accounts and also how much if you're not sharing accounts, but how much are you reusing passwords?
Yeah.
Primary answer to that is you do the best you can. So Pepper, you brought up you lock your house and then you leave. Someone could go break a fucking window. Someone could pick the lock. Yeah. But for the most part, locking your door weeds out anyone just coming up and testing to see if your door is unlocked. Right?
Yeah.
That's how I treat cybersecurity too. Yeah, you do the basic shit, but realize that nothing is actually certain.
Correct. So there are certain aspects of cybersecurity and like encryption things that for the most part, it's a reasonable expectation that if someone gets this encrypted file and the password isn't guessable and they don't have it, they can never decrypt it. It's like it's currently, as of today, mathematically impossible to do that. There are things like that exist.
Sure. I'm thinking of that guy who put his fucking social security number on all those billboards and got fucking hacked right away or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah. Effortless.
You knew about that one?
Identity thefted, yeah.
He was saying how awesome their lock was, or how awesome unhackable they were. That was the whole point, and it was very much not.
Yeah. So the social side is a very important part. I'm going through day job where our founder and CEO has been hacked like significantly 3 or 4 times because he has accidentally clicked phishing links several times. Like, people genuinely get fooled. Whenever I get an email, how much do you both do this? When you get an email, how much do you hover your cursor over the link and verify what it is?
Oh, I do that shit constantly just because I've had it drilled into my head.
Okay. Zan, how about you?
Wait, what was the question?
When you get an email, how much do you verify the link before you click it?
Oh.
I'm not here to shame. I'm just saying.
No, I mean, I guess it depends on where it's coming from, but yeah, I don't really think.
All right. How much do you verify where it's coming from? When you enter payment info on any website, how much do you check that little lock up top, and how much do you check the domain to make sure what you're about to enter is where you want to be?
The domain, yes. I don't know what the lock means.
That is the encryption thing that basically says if someone is snooping your traffic, they will not be able to see your credit card info in transit.
Oh, I understand.
So, like, that's Bitwarden. I'm going to shill for it. Bitwarden, I don't like. LastPass made some changes, but, like, if you use it, great. Password managers are a big deal. But what I'm getting at is security at large is more than just the tech. I can go into the tech stuff. But the same social thing applies to the engineering and architecture of a tech platform to what I just talked about with these passwords. It's everyone's responsibility. So, all right. Hacking is kind of like this pandemic thing. You have to get some kind of herd immunity as far as behaviors to minimize what happens. If 75% of our adult population using technology did all of these things correct, using LastPass, never sharing a password. If they are doing an account share, it's so heavily isolated that if that one account gets compromised, nothing else does. If you have built a fucking pipeline system that has internet access. Gee golly, if they own the system, it should have fucking nothing to do with the control of the goddamn pipe. There is no reason a fucking nuclear power station, there's no reason me on the internet here should be able to actually access physically from remote those controls. It should require on-site stuff. If it requires off-site stuff, it should have dedicated lines that aren't hooked up to the internet. And that is costly. But what's the alternative? Oh, the gas pipeline stopped. Oh, there might be a meltdown at the power plant.
Oh,
do you remember the stories? Remember the stories that came out where it's like, oh, did you know that like the nuclear blah 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 is still using like floppy disks? And I'm like, good, because that means they don't have a fucking modem in that bitch.
Yeah. And it's one of those where, like, the media... All right, floppy disks have a lifespan. So if you're not actively updating and maintaining your important floppies with data, the system might fail because you can't put the right disk in, and if that causes a scenario that's dangerous, that's really fucking bad.
Well, yeah.
But if it's not on the internet,
like the
fucking
idea that
great.
it's offline. Yeah,
I'm swearing a lot, I'm sorry.
They didn't just immediately stick it on an app. Like, here we go, launch code app. Launcher.
Launcher.
So Coffee Cat also brings this up. Just because your communication between you and a website is secure doesn't mean the people who architected the fucking web service don't have holes elsewhere.
Exactly. We all got Equifax
Yup.
like 2 years ago. And then they just didn't pay anyone. Remember that shit?
Oh,
Yup.
yeah.
You have to pay, and then they just didn't. And we're like, oh, so is that money coming? Yeah, it's coming. I don't know.
No.
Jesus.
So, like, I'm not perfect. There are still a bunch of sites where I've not migrated fully to the password manager. I am one of those people that has a password generation scheme. And as far as I'm aware, just looking, like, if someone had 3 of my passwords, would they be able to figure it out? I don't think so. I've tried running it against some algorithm password crackers just to see how secure mine is, and the last time I did it, it couldn't figure them out. But I'm still moving away from it. It's difficult because the more secure you get, the more you become at risk of losing access to an account if something goes wrong with your password manager or your backups. So you have to back up your password manager data in a secure spot that ideally is not online anywhere, because if anyone gains access to that, they have just owned all your accounts, and you don't even know. And the more
You've circled around to why no one does this, because like after step 1 of this, we were like, I'm not doing any of that shit. Just have my money. I don't care.
Well, so you say
I'm
that,
so fucking
but
lazy.
like, ask anyone who has truly been a severe victim of identity theft, and it's the same thing. Like, I didn't take it seriously. I am so full of regret right now. Holy shit, this is horrible. Like,
Oh, sure.
how much of your life boils down to account access in this modern era is huge, and people don't understand that. And like, these entities don't have any motive to be better to help you, the person. So like, here's a simple one. I wanted to get a fishing license many years ago. And they said that social security number, because the DNR requires your social security number to get one in the state I was in. And they're like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? It's a fucking fishing license. So my dad had to go with me because I didn't have a car at the time, drove me to go find this weird remote location at a DNR. And they're like, well, we have this social security number registered to someone else. I don't travel with my social security card. It was only through sheer luck of convincing someone and having them look at my state photo ID going, well, okay, we understand that the name and that driver's license matches, but you don't have your social security card, so we can't actually verify this. I was lucky they relented. This is the most inconsequential example of it, but imagine if it was a 401k thing. You know, your savings. Imagine if it was medical stuff, and all of a sudden people are refusing medical care to you because laws require you to verify who you are, and the system says you're not you. The human element is utterly removed from all of this, which is what makes security stuff from the individual level so much more scary and impactful. I'm going to stop monologuing. I can go for hours on this shit.
if you can get robbed from anywhere in the world, like it comes back to like a motivations thing where I don't want to sound like I'm being utopian, but it seems like if we didn't live in a society that artificially forced us to compete with each other, because as we were just talking about, some of these hacks are foreign. I know they said like
All right, hold on, Pepper.
Russian-speaking hackers. Yeah,
Pepper, don't be like Michael Moore and be like, Canadians don't lock their doors.
well,
You remember that?
It's not even that. Like, but like these weird. I do remember that. I remember him going up to Canadians' doors and just opening them.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
someone's like, "Excuse me," and he's like, "Hi, I'm
gonna
Michael Moore.
walk
I'm at your
in.
house."
It's okay because it's Canada.
People were confused. They're like, "What are, sir?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Michael Moore. I'm making a movie." And they're like, "Okay." It's pretty fucking great. But like we have this wonderful technology now that in some ways is extremely good and helpful and makes like information access so easy. Like everybody loves that you don't have to like go to a bank to deposit shit. You take fucking picture on your phone. Like, that stuff is all cool. And I want to be able to have a life where I can fully embrace and throw myself into such technology once all of the horrible motivators are gone. Like, you know what I mean?
So for a future topic, because I've cornered it enough here, but what you're talking about is something that I would like to bring up as a, let's call it a what if, or what does my industry look like under gay space communism or gay space socialism? Because there's a lot of things where people don't know or don't even know how to frame what that would look like. You know, there's a bunch of open source projects and people hear about it and think about it, but that's just kind of what has happened. And if you were to formalize that at scale, like let's say Microsoft and Apple as makers of operating systems, same thing with Google for Android, let's say either they cease to exist or even were not allowed to exist, or they're allowed to exist, but they're the minority, and the communist software approach is there. If folks are interested in that, there are a lot of ideas around what that would look like. If you remove the profit motive, all right, here's what I'll end on is like the tease. Did you know if we were to just put a shit ton of effort into optimizations and security, open source hardware chip designs from 10 years ago are all we really need as like computer users for humanity?
Sure. I believe that.
And so once
once
you have an ubiquitous hardware platform, what does that enable? What changes? What problems stop happening?
Fucking
if you're
gatekeeping and trying to keep each other out, basically.
like for example, the biggest one is planned obsolescence goes away.
Absolutely.
That's
Your
true.
all your battery lives are going to go way up. Suddenly, all your devices will last 20 years.
Oh yeah, because like
Or
if
forever,
you're,
like-
things will break. There will be issues and things, and you still want innovation. Look, all right. So let's take screens as the biggest example of this. I want screens to continue to evolve because as far as power usage, readability, and overall quality compared to what we can imagine, I really, really, really want that to advance. But the rest of the computer, for what people use them for, not much of that has changed in a drastic way. Right? How is your all right, each of you, we'll end on this. How has your computer usage drastically changed after you've had the smartphone in your pocket? Has it for you?
Well, I'm the only, I think, dedicated Mac user of the three of us. So for me, my phone and my computer just talk to each other like magic, and it's great.
But has that changed since you got it? Like I'm calling getting the smart.
I got them at the same time.
Right. Okay. So how many years ago was that?
Oh my God, 2013. So like 8 years.
Okay. So in the last 8 years, after that groundbreaking moment, what has significantly changed in terms of your use and quality of life through tech?
I mean, heck, I've told you about at the beginning. The only thing I ever use is my audio software. So like every time a new version of the thing comes out and like the processing's a little faster, I'm like, great, I can export this faster. So my dream would be like the last 7 generations of iPhones. I mean, just give me a screen, let me replace a couple of components. And talking about planned obsolescence, some components could be swapped out for new ones, and other shit, like if I just have my same 4.5-inch screen, touch screen that works, I don't need. That's fine. It's like the same shit. Oh.
How about you, Zan?
Just like how much has it changed? And I don't know. Like I guess the most is access to email and messages is the biggest change.
Well, no. All right. So
Okay.
once you got the phone, once you got that access, because you've had smartphones, let's just call it 2013, whatever that is. So you've, in the past 8 years, once you got the mini computer, once you got the internet in your fucking pocket, what has changed for you tech-wise in the last 8 years? I love this silence. Oh my God, I love that question.
I guess because I'm so I tied to a computer in my life that in my career that I didn't change too much. So I'm trying to think.
So what I think we're going to do is, or what I want to do is, I'm going to put a poll or something through the Patreon, or it'll just be something simple here in our Discord. So if you're listening to this and you're not yet a patron, $1 is all it costs to participate in this next discussion. I'm going to craft a couple little questions or open-ended questions, and I want to hear from you all before either, in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, however long it takes me to put this stuff together. I want to dig into this more. Because, people are saying VR. There's a bunch of things where I can call out to where things have drastically changed. But
I would say the instant access to information is a big one.
Right, but I'm saying you got that 8 years ago. What's changed?
But not instantly. You could still...
It gets faster. That's what I like about it.
It is faster.
I had to go to a computer, and that actually influences social interactions and conversations too. Trying to think.
We will talk about it more, and
Yeah.
I don't want to have people dwell on it here, but the point I'm getting at is it's getting increasingly difficult to just say, "Holy shit, this changed in the last 8 years," and that is what leads into why planned obsolescence in certain ways has hindered certain developments that can be driven by slowing the fuck down. All right, monologue done. Someone else say something.
We're at the end of the episode. We're at about just over an hour here. We will see everybody in 2 weeks. For my last minute, I want to talk about a kind of Mexican ice cream called Boli's, which I was looking at. I'm like, Bali, what could this possibly be? Turns out Boli's is a shorten of boligrafos, so it means pens, and it's appropriate because it's a tube of, it's like a Go-Gurt, but with a frozen ice cream thing in it, and I can get 6 of them for $6, and I've been sucking on Boli's all week. I highly advise sucking on Boli's. I give it 10 out of 10 ice cream pens.
Right a flavor in my mouth.
Right. Oh my, that's part of the title, right? In that
I was going to say,
right,
that's either an alternative or part of it. The last minute I'm going to do, because this is a thing that came up. I saw it in some groups, and it's making rounds. A bunch of people tweeted about it. There is one or more people not only impersonating other furries, but are joining various Telegram groups, and I'm assuming also Discord channels, and are spreading not only the blank templates for the vaccine cards, but they claim to also have access to legit vaccine batch and group numbers. So kick them the fuck out of your groups. You do not need to hesitate. You do not need to go, free speech. Don't. Get rid of them. Be done with it. And then announce who it was. Take that username and share it with fucking everyone. Oh my God. Don't dox them. I'm not really in favor of that, because how much these individual actors can actually hurt the population at large, especially with our current vaccine rates, is yes, could you technically get someone in trouble with the feds, but the punishment that tends to come with that is disproportionate to what's going on. So while, yes, it's
the feds. We don't like the feds.
Yeah, we don't. But yeah, that's my last minute. It's come up. It's really shitty. Be vigilant. It sucks. I don't want to name names, but if you're unfortunately having to cut someone off or lose a friend or loved one over being an anti-vaxxer, I'm deeply sorry, and it sucks. And I understand it's easy for me to say, yeah, fuck them, because for the most part, I have not had I am really emotionally invested with this person, and this is bad and tragic. I have not had to really cross that line, other than a bunch of queer shit. But it's hard, and it sucks. But I think it's worth holding your ground over.
Might be the thing that makes them go get it.
It might. You never know.
All right, Zanny, what do you think about?
I got nothing.
Head empty, no thoughts.
Empty burn. Fucking exhausted.
What are you gonna go do after this?
Watch wrestling?
Me too.
Hell yeah.
Do you want to do a last minute on the struggles of healthcare and shitty tech systems therein?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, don't trust anyone
Systems.
in the medical system because you have to go do that shit yourself. And nobody talks to each other, and it's insane. So, and it was funny is like everyone inside it knows it too. Like you talk to enough and like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up. It's like, no, not okay. It's like, so I had to literally like have a printout of an EKG and show it over a phone to get a medication approved at one point. So hopefully, I mean, obviously M4A would help that, obviously. But it's everything we were talking about, how everything's fucking separated. So yeah, let's fucking reform that shit for fuck's sake, Jesus Christ.
I have been Pepper Coyote.
I have been Dragor.
And I have been Zanny.
Oh no, we all yell bye at once. Bye.
Wait, can we harmonize a bye? Can you teach us how to do that really quick?
Hit a note. I'll harmonize it.
Bye.
Bye. All right, bye.
Told you it was hard.